Rob, you have to let this Spielberg thing go. I thought I could forgive him. DC was that shit. It nearly made Indiana Jones 5 look better. Calm down, okay? But looking back, I don't think I can find it in my heart to forgive Steven for that. Indiana Jones 5 wasn't even that bad. Damn it, Chandler! Did you see Indy 5? Yeah, I know, but somehow made 4 look like a masterpiece, and the prick made that one as well! Just look at this man. This is the man who gave us Jaws and Jurassic Park. He can't make up for it. And the first 3 Indiana Jones movies. He can't. You need to look back at his career. You need to find it within your heart to forgive him for this. His entire career has made up for the awful movies that he may have endorsed during that time. Just try and learn to forgive. This man was once on top of the world, and now he's endorsing piles of poo. Okay, Steven, I think it's the last cause. He's being a little pussy. Let's go get a beer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, me and Spielberg have had a bit of a rocky relationship, but you know what? Let's let bygones be bygones. And for this year's Summer of Venom, I'm going to be looking at every movie that Spielberg has directed, obviously excluding the ones that I've already reviewed. So buckle up for the Summer of Venom 2 Spielberg Month. Duel follows David, played by Dennis Weaver, a salesman excavated from Burt Reynolds' nutsack, travelling through the Californian desert on a business trip to meet a client. However, he suddenly finds himself being tailed by a mysterious tanker truck, and what seems like a brief annoyance quickly devolves into a manic chase of life and death, as David desperately tries to outdrive his ominous pursuer. It's basically Mad Max Fury Road, but on the budget of a potato.
Yes, thank you.
The idea for the movie came to writer Richard Matheson when he was tailgated by a trucker whilst driving home from a golfing match, and he wondered what it would be like to be chased through the desert without anyone around to help you. He initially tried to pitch the story as an episode of The Twilight Zone, but was rejected, at which point he decided to write it as a short story instead, which was published in Playboy magazine. A short story. In Playboy.
Yes.
A young Steven Spielberg was then given the short story by his secretary, who told him that it was going to be adapted by ABC into a television film, and suggested that he apply to direct it. Spielberg agreed to do so, showing the executives a rough cut of an episode of Columbo that he had directed, which convinced them to hire him as director for Duel. Yes, this intense, thrilling and cinematic car chase of death originated as a TV movie. This man can turn piss into wine.
That's sick, man. That's sick.
Dennis Weaver was Spielberg's only choice for the lead, as he was an admirer of his performance in Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. But the producers were hesitant, wanting either Dustin Hoffman or Gregory Peck. However, they eventually relented and Spielberg got his way, officially casting Weaver literally the evening before shooting was due to begin.
Whatever you want, I got it.
Initially, the movie was going to be filmed on sound stages using rear projection, but Spielberg lobbied for the film to be shot on location on real highways to give the movie a more authentic feel. ABC were hesitant, however, feeling that the film could not be shot efficiently with the time and money provided, but they agreed to let the director shoot for 3 days to prove that it could be done. Spielberg then proceeded to map out the entire route of the car chase using overhead maps, at which point the studio were convinced and finally gave him the go-ahead. Amazingly, the entire movie was completed in 23 days, with shooting taking place over just 13, whilst editing and composing the musical score only took 10. Meanwhile, it takes me 8 years just to write a script.
Duel was broadcast on the ABC network on November the 13th, 1971, and was a huge success, becoming the 18th highest rated TV movie of the year and earning a Golden Globe nomination for Best Television Movie. The film's success was so great that ABC even allowed Spielberg to re-release it theatrically, collaborating with Universal to help with distribution outside of the United States. However, at just 74 minutes long, the movie was deemed too short for a theatrical release, leading Universal to commission Spielberg to shoot another 20 minutes worth of extra footage to expand the runtime, which included the opening of David's car backing out of the driveway and the scene of him talking to his wife on the phone in the laundromat.
Yes, sir.
Reviews for both the TV broadcast and the theatrical release were insanely positive, particularly for Spielberg's direction, and the film's success not only put him on the map as an in-demand director, but it's widely considered to be one of the best television movies of all time, as well as one of the best directorial debuts in history. What's interesting is that the poor guy is chased down by the truck killer, but we never actually find out why. We only ever see their hands, and Spielberg specifically chose a Peterbilt as the evil vehicle, as he thought that the distinctive grille made it look like its own face. He didn't want to show the driver's face to play off of the audience's fear of the unknown, using the less you see trope of storytelling that he would perfect a few years later in Jaws. The driver was played by Kerry Lofton, and he actually asked Spielberg what his character's motivation was for hunting down David, to which the director replied, "You're a dirty, rotten, no good son of a bitch." To which Lofton replied, "Kid, you hired the right man."
Are you sure?
If you pay attention, during some close-ups of the truck, you can see that there are multiple license plates on the front bumper. Spielberg claimed that he intended it to suggest that the driver was actually a serial killer who had run down other drivers in various other states. But if it was a serial killer, wouldn't they eventually get annoyed that he constantly tricks them and gets away? Surely he would just be like, "Ah, fuck it," and move on. But no, he fully hunts him down!
Just forget it.
I mean, the opening shots clearly inspired the likes of Gus Van Sant, but they're quite atmospheric and relaxing before all of the carnage takes place. Spielberg's skills were already showing at this early stage. There's a cool tracking shot around both the moving car and the truck, which was incredibly inventive for its time, especially on such a low budget. Of course, we get the generic shots of driving that would be mirrored for years. You can really see its influence, even if there's a jump scare. Or two. Some of the shots are quite standard today, but for its time they were really creative, and some of the transitions are really well handled and smooth. There's a scene where he stops at a cafe and starts suspecting all of the locals, and we get a really unnerving, creepy shot panning around to all of them with some really ominous music playing. Another shot is really clever. He's driving, supposedly free from the villain, and he starts to slow down. He then goes over the hill, and as the camera follows him, the truck is slowly revealed. Man, Spielberg was a genius, and this movie marathon is gonna go swimmingly with his completely flawless resume. And the action is incredible for its time, especially considering the budget. It even seems to mirror classic old western showdowns. It's a brilliantly directed film, and you can tell why it made Stevie Boy into such a big star. Most of the movie doesn't have any music, and it works really well. It's fascinating how a film with pretty much no plot and no rhyme or reason and minimal musical score is this insanely entertaining. I mean, he's nearly being murdered with not a single piece of music, and it's brilliant. There are points where music does come in, but it's always subtle and at the right moment. It would just get repetitive if it was 80 minutes of being bumped by a truck, but you get the truck chase without music, then it drops and it keeps it from growing stale. Although this scene is weird without music.
Hey! Hey! Come on!
The music is usually slow, but then kicks in perfectly. It slowly builds up to the final chase before cutting completely. It's fantastic. At first, it just seems like a standard drive that most people can relate to. Awkward truck tailgating you or going too slow in front of you, so you both act petty, overtaking one another. The movie perfectly encapsulates the pettiness and frustration of driving. It's so accurate. The Jeepers Creepers killer won't even let him overtake. I also love how he keeps looking behind himself as if he doesn't have a rear view mirror right there. Did he forget how to drive? And keep your damn eyes on the road. There's a few voiceovers throughout, but they seem weird. They don't even seem like voiceovers. I thought it was just him speaking at first.
You just never know. You just go along figuring some things don't change ever.
I will admit, there's a lot of creepy scenes with the truck just showing up no matter what. I mean, he kind of had it coming. What do you expect when you say,
All right, boy, it was a nightmare, but it's over now.
It's a damn good lead performance, telling the story of pure paranoia as he suspects everyone. There's a really mesmerising scene as he fantasizes about approaching people over the truck, and they have a couple of clever fake outs as truckers leave and he watches them, but then realises that they're from a different one altogether. But I absolutely love how casual he is when he approaches someone that he's convinced is trying to murder him.
I want you to cut it out.
Although there's a scene where the truck literally drives off, but that's not enough for him. He has to run after them to find out who the hell it is. But I guess it's a magical truck?
Why didn't you flag down that truck?
What truck?
Would you mind? The one that just went by here a couple of minutes ago.
But I do love this edit. He gets his bumper stuck under a bus, and as he and the driver struggle, the truck returns, but it looks almost like it's their saviour at first, but then it turns sinister. And is a slasher villain, apparently. But the serial killer decided to stop his murder attempts to briefly help a school bus of children first, I guess. There's even an intense scene where the truck tries shoving him into a train. Jesus Christ! Followed briefly by the truck actually trying to run him over as he's trying to call the cops. And there's no green screen or stunt double here. Dennis Weaver actually did this himself. It's quite funny too because this woman is more concerned with her snakes dying, but snakes are evil, they deserved it.
Oh my God! That snake!
That's a lizard. On one hand, it's baffling that it's taken him this long to consider just walking up and confronting the driver. On the other hand, he just tried to run you down. Are you a moron? Then he even attempts to reverse murder this elderly couple, who reverse all down the road instead of just turning around. And the killer is apparently a child, just stops in front of David's car but doesn't actually do anything. Then drives off anyway. Alright. You know, you'd think at this point he'd learn to not get cocky and laugh because it's never fucking over! Then he decides to randomly inspire Ernest P. Worrell mugging shots for some reason before a nice ending with the killer flying off a cliff, which had to be done in one take. The closing credits are also really well done. They're completely silent. He's just throwing rocks on the side of the road trying to take in what just happened. It's a really cool way to end the story. The movie is brilliant and a must-see for anyone who aspires to be a filmmaker. The lead performance is great, the action is intense and suspenseful, and it's a brilliant start to a legendary filmmaker's legendary career. Oscar!